The mining drill screamed against the rock face, sending vibrations through Taemin's entire body. Dust filled his lungs with every breath, and the heat from the planet's core made sweat pour down his face. He had been working for 16 hours straight, just like every other day for the past 7 years. His hands were covered in scars and his back ached from the heavy equipment he carried. Taemin was a slave, not by choice but by the simple misfortune of being human in a galaxy ruled by the Vryn Empire. The Vryn were tall, powerful aliens with silver skin and eyes that glowed like embers. They had conquered Earth 50 years ago, and humanity had lost everything. Now humans worked in mines, factories, and farms across dozens of worlds, treated as nothing more than tools. "Move faster, human!" a Vryn guard shouted, hitting Taemin's shoulder with an electric prod. The shock made his muscles spasm, but he did not cry out. He had learned long ago that showing pain only made things worse. Taemin returned to his work, his mind wandering to memories of his sister Hana. She worked in the processing facility on the surface, sorting minerals. He had not seen her in 3 months. The Vryn kept families separated to prevent rebellion, but Taemin held on to hope. He had to believe they would both survive long enough to see freedom again. The tunnel shook suddenly. Small rocks began falling from the ceiling. Taemin looked up, his engineering training kicking in immediately. He had been an engineer before the war, before everything changed. The support beams were cracking. This section of the mine was about to collapse. "Everyone out!" Taemin shouted to the other slaves. "The tunnel is failing." The slaves dropped their tools and ran toward the exit. The Vryn guards followed, pushing slaves aside to save themselves first. Taemin was about to run when he heard something that made his blood freeze. A voice, a Vryn voice, coming from deeper in the tunnel. Taemin knew he should run. Every instinct screamed at him to escape. But something made him turn back. He grabbed a portable light and ran deeper into the collapsing mine. The voice belonged to a female Vryn, and she was trapped under a fallen beam. Her silver skin was covered in dust and blood. Despite the pain she must have been feeling, her ember eyes burned with rage rather than fear. "You," she hissed when she saw Taemin. "Help me, slave." Taemin recognized her immediately. Everyone on Arcturus 7 knew who she was. Jiwoo, called the Crimson Reaper across the galaxy. She was a noble, a hunter of legendary skill, and the owner of hundreds of slaves, including Taemin himself. She had purchased him 3 years ago, but rarely visited the mines. She was known for her cruelty and her pride. The tunnel shook again. Larger rocks fell. Taemin calculated quickly. He had maybe 2 minutes before the entire section came down. He could run and let her die. The slaves would be free of one more cruel master. No one would blame him, but Taemin had not survived 7 years of slavery by abandoning his principles. His humanity was the only thing the Vryn had not taken from him. He grabbed a metal rod and used it as a lever, pushing against the beam with all his strength. Jiwoo tried to pull herself free, but the beam was too heavy. Taemin adjusted his position and pushed harder. His muscles screamed in protest. The beam shifted slightly. "Almost there," Taemin grunted. "When I lift, pull yourself out." He gathered every ounce of strength and lifted. The beam rose just enough. Jiwoo pulled herself free, her leg clearly broken. The tunnel groaned ominously. "We have to go now," Taemin shouted. But Jiwoo could not walk. She tried to stand and immediately fell. Taemin did not hesitate. He grabbed her arm and pulled it over his shoulder, supporting her weight. They moved as fast as they could toward the exit, but Jiwoo was much larger than him, and her weight slowed them down. The ceiling began to collapse behind them. Rocks crashed down, filling the tunnel with dust and debris. Taemin could barely see. His lungs burned. His legs felt like they would give out any second. A massive boulder fell directly in their path. Taemin pushed Jiwoo ahead and threw himself over her, using his body as a shield. The boulder struck his back and pain exploded through his spine, but the boulder was deflected just enough to miss Jiwoo completely. Everything went dark. When Taemin woke, he was lying on the ground outside the mine. His back felt like it was on fire. He could hear voices around him, but they sounded distant and muffled. He tried to sit up, but strong hands pushed him back down. "Do not move, human," a Vryn medic said. "You have broken ribs and severe bruising. You are lucky to be alive." Taemin looked around and saw Jiwoo being treated by several medics. She was unconscious but breathing. Her leg was being set in a medical brace. Around them, Vryn guards stood watching, their weapons ready. The other slaves had been rounded up and were being marched back to their barracks. For 3 days, Taemin recovered in the medical facility. It was the first time in 7 years he had slept in a real bed and eaten food that was not protein paste. But he knew it would not last. Soon he would be sent back to the mines, and the brief taste of comfort would make the return to suffering even harder. On the 4th day, Jiwoo came to see him. She walked with a cane, her leg still healing. Her ember eyes studied him with an expression he could not read. Taemin sat up in bed, waiting for whatever judgment she would pass. Perhaps she would have him killed for touching a noble without permission. Perhaps she would send him to a worse mine as punishment for seeing her moment of weakness. "Why did you save me?" Jiwoo asked. Her voice was steady, but there was genuine confusion in it. Taemin met her eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do. You could have escaped. You could have let me die. No one would have known." "I would have known," Taemin said simply. Jiwoo was silent for a long moment. She seemed to be struggling with something, some internal conflict that Taemin could not understand. Finally, she spoke again. "I am taking you from the mines. You will come to my estate on Vryn Prime as my personal attendant. Pack whatever belongings you have. We leave tomorrow." Taemin's heart sank. He had heard the stories about slaves who went to serve in noble households. Most never returned. They were worked to death or killed for minor offenses. But he could not refuse an order from his master. "What about my sister?" Taemin asked. "Hana, she works in the processing facility." Jiwoo's expression hardened. "She will remain here. Perhaps if you serve me well, I will consider bringing her to Vryn Prime as well." That night, Taemin said goodbye to the other slaves he had worked with for years. They looked at him with pity. One old man who had survived 15 years of slavery gripped his shoulder. "The Crimson Reaper shows no mercy," the old man whispered. "Whatever she wants from you, it will not end well. Be strong, Taemin." As Taemin was led to the transport ship the next morning, he looked back at the mining colony one last time. Somewhere down there, Hana was working, not knowing her brother was leaving. He made a silent promise to himself. He would survive whatever Jiwoo had planned for him. He would find a way back for his sister. He would not let the Vryn break him. The ship rose into the sky, carrying him away from everything he knew, toward an uncertain future in the home of the galaxy's most feared hunter. Vryn Prime was nothing like the mining colonies. The capital world of the Vryn Empire gleamed with towers of crystal and metal that reached toward the clouds. Flying vehicles filled the sky like flocks of birds. The air was clean and cool, so different from the dust and heat Taemin had breathed for 7 years. Jiwoo's estate sat on a hill overlooking the capital city. It was a fortress made of black stone, surrounded by high walls and guarded by heavily armed soldiers. As the transport ship landed, Taemin saw gardens filled with strange alien plants and fountains that sparkled in the sunlight. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Inside, the estate was even more intimidating. The walls were decorated with trophies from Jiwoo's hunts across the galaxy. Preserved heads of dozens of alien species stared down at Taemin with dead eyes. Weapons from 100 worlds hung in display cases. Each item represented a life Jiwoo had taken. "These are my achievements," Jiwoo said, noticing Taemin looking at the displays. She walked slowly, still recovering from her injury. "I have hunted on 43 worlds. I have never failed to catch my prey. This is what makes me the Crimson Reaper." Taemin said nothing. He knew she was trying to intimidate him, to remind him of his place. But after 7 years in the mines, he was beyond fear. A Vryn servant approached and bowed to Jiwoo. "My lady, your quarters have been prepared. Shall I show the human to the slave chambers?" "No," Jiwoo said. "Give him a room in the main house." "A real room, with a window." The servant looked shocked but bowed again. "As you wish, my lady." Taemin was given a small room on the 3rd floor. It had a bed, a desk, a bathroom, and a window that overlooked the gardens. After 7 years of sleeping on a metal shelf in a crowded barracks, it felt like paradise. But Taemin knew better than to trust this comfort. Jiwoo wanted something from him, and he needed to figure out what. Over the next few days, Jiwoo tested him constantly. She would call him to her study and ask him questions about human history, engineering, military tactics. She wanted to understand how humans thought, how they fought, how they survived. Taemin answered honestly. He had nothing to hide, and he sensed that lying to her would be dangerous. "Your people lost the war," Jiwoo said one evening as they sat in her study. "Yet you do not act defeated. Why?" Taemin considered his answer carefully. Because defeat is a state of mind. You can take away our freedom, our homes, our lives, but you cannot take away who we are. As long as we remember that, we are not truly defeated. Jiwoo leaned back in her chair, her ember eyes studying him. Your species is weak. You have no natural weapons, no enhanced strength, no advanced evolution, yet you resist where stronger species have simply accepted their fate. It is interesting. Strength is not just physical, Taemin said. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We adapt, we endure. That is our strength. For the first time, Taemin saw something in Jiwoo's expression that was not cruelty or pride. It was curiosity. Real curiosity. The comfortable routine ended 2 weeks after Taemin arrived. Jiwoo received a message from the Vrin High Council and immediately summoned Taemin to her study. Her expression was darker than he had ever seen. There is a challenge, she said. A rogue Vrin general named Kale Rix has declared he will hunt me. If I refuse, I will be branded a coward and lose everything. If I accept, I may die. Who is Kale Rix? Taemin asked. A monster, Jiwoo said. She pulled up a holographic display showing a massive Vrin warrior covered in battle scars. He was once the greatest general in the Vrin military. He conquered 12 systems. Then he went mad with power and turned against the Empire. Now he commands an army of mercenaries and has destroyed 3 entire star systems. He has issued this challenge to prove he is the greatest hunter alive. And you must fight him alone. According to Vrin tradition, yes. In 30 days, he will come to Vrin Prime and we will hunt each other in the honor grounds. No technology, no armies. Only skill and strength. Jiwoo looked tired suddenly, almost vulnerable. He has been studying me for years. He knows all my techniques, all my strategies. I do not know if I can defeat him. Taemin thought carefully. Then you need new strategies. Techniques he has not seen before. Jiwoo looked at him sharply. What do you mean? I mean human tactics. Kale Rix has studied Vrin hunting methods. He expects you to fight like a Vrin. But what if you fought like a human? Humans are weak, Jiwoo said automatically. Humans are clever, Taemin corrected. We cannot match alien strength. So we develop different ways of fighting. Guerrilla warfare, ambush tactics, psychological warfare. We use our environment, our enemies' expectations against them. Let me help you prepare. Jiwoo was silent for a long time. Taemin could see the conflict on her face. Everything in her culture told her that accepting help from a slave, from a human, was shameful. But her survival instinct was stronger than her pride. Very well, she said finally. Show me these human tactics. For the next 2 weeks, Taemin taught Jiwoo everything he could remember from human military history. They studied ancient Earth warfare, from the guerrilla tactics of ancient rebels to the strategic deceptions of the world wars. Jiwoo was a quick learner, and despite herself, she began to respect Taemin's knowledge. They were in the training room one afternoon when the alarm started screaming. Vrin guards rushed into the room, weapons drawn. My lady, the estate is under attack. One guard shouted. Assassins sent by Kale Rix. Explosions echoed through the halls. The lights flickered. Jiwoo grabbed a plasma blade from the wall and rushed toward the door. Taemin followed her, grabbing a metal staff from the training equipment. Stay behind me, human, Jiwoo commanded. They moved through the corridors, Jiwoo's blade humming with deadly energy. Bodies of guards lay scattered on the floor. The assassins were skilled and brutal. They had come prepared to kill the Crimson Reaper. 3 assassins appeared at the end of the hallway, their weapons raised. Jiwoo charged forward, her blade cutting through the first assassin before he could react. The second fired an energy weapon, but Jiwoo dodged and struck him down. The third assassin was faster. His blade caught Jiwoo across the arm, drawing silver blood. Before the assassin could strike again, Taemin swung the metal staff with all his strength. The assassin had not expected an attack from a human slave. The staff connected with his head, and the assassin crumpled to the ground. Jiwoo stared at Taemin in surprise. You fought for me, again. I told you I would help you, Taemin said simply. More assassins appeared from different directions. Jiwoo and Taemin fought back to back, an unlikely partnership between master and slave. Taemin used the improvised tactics he had been teaching Jiwoo, using the environment to his advantage, striking from unexpected angles. He was not as strong as the Vrin assassins, but he was clever and desperate. Finally, the last assassin fell. The estate was secured. Guards searched for any remaining threats while medics treated the wounded. Jiwoo sat down heavily, exhausted and bleeding from several wounds. "You saved me again," she said quietly. "Twice now you have protected me when you could have let me die." "I do not understand you, Taemin." "Maybe that is the problem," Taemin said. "You have never tried to understand humans. You have only seen us as slaves, as property, but we are more than that." Jiwoo looked at him for a long moment. Something was changing in her eyes, some fundamental shift in how she saw the world. "If I survive this challenge with Kale Ricks," she said slowly, "I will free you. You will no longer be my slave. This I promise." Taemin felt hope surge in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. "And my sister? And the other humans on Arcturus 7? Jiwoo hesitated. This was asking too much, he could see it in her face. But finally she nodded. "I will consider it. First we must survive. Will you stand with me against Kale Ricks?" Taemin extended his hand. It was a human gesture, one of equals. Jiwoo stared at his hand, then slowly reached out and grasped it. Her grip was strong but careful. "I will stand with you," Taemin said. "Not as your slave, as your ally." For the first time since he had known her, Jiwoo smiled. It was not a cruel smile or a proud smile. It was almost genuine. The days passed quickly as the challenge approached. Taemin and Jiwoo trained relentlessly, preparing for the fight that would determine both their fates. The relationship between them continued to shift in ways that made both of them uncomfortable. They were no longer master and slave, but they were not quite friends either. They existed in a strange space between, bound together by necessity and growing respect. Jiwoo taught Taemin about Vrin combat techniques, the philosophy of hunting, and the code of honor that governed her people. Taemin taught her about human adaptability, creative thinking, and the guerrilla tactics that had allowed weaker forces to defeat stronger ones throughout Earth's history. "Your people have an interesting concept," Jiwoo said one morning as they practiced in the training room. "You call it asymmetric warfare, fighting in ways your enemy does not expect or cannot counter." "It is how humans have always survived," Taemin explained, dodging her practice strike. "We could not outrun predators, so we used tools. We could not overpower larger animals, so we used traps and tactics. When the Vrin invaded Earth, we could not match your technology, so we tried to use terrain, surprise, and desperation." "It did not work," Jiwoo pointed out. "No," Taemin admitted. "But it is the reason some of us are still here, still fighting in our own way." A visitor arrived at the estate that afternoon. Bo-Ra was a high-ranking commander in the Vrin fleet and Jiwoo's oldest friend. She was shorter than most Vrin but carried herself with absolute confidence. Her silver skin bore the scars of many battles and her ember eyes missed nothing. Bo-Ra studied Taemin with open curiosity. "So this is the human everyone is talking about. The slave who saved the Crimson Reaper." "He is no longer a slave," Jiwoo said. The words came out more defensively than she probably intended. Bo-Ra raised an eyebrow. "Really? The High Council will not like that. They already distrust you, Jiwoo. Your views about the conquered species have made you enemies." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked. Bo-Ra glanced at Jiwoo, who nodded permission. "Jiwoo has argued before the council that some conquered species should be treated as citizens rather than slaves. She believes the Empire would be stronger with allies instead of servants. The council sees this as dangerous thinking. That is why they support Kale Ricks," Jiwoo said bitterly. "They want me dead. If Kale Ricks kills me, they eliminate a voice that questions their power. If I kill him, I will be too weakened to oppose them. Either way, they win." Taemin felt cold understanding wash over him. This was never just about honor. It is about politics. "Everything is about politics," Bo-Ra said. She turned to Jiwoo. "You must be careful. Kale Ricks has been studying you for years. He knows your hunting style, your preferred weapons, your strategies. You need something he has not seen." "I have something," Jiwoo said, looking at Taemin. "I have human ingenuity." That evening, Taemin and Jiwoo slipped out of the estate in disguise. They needed information about Kale Ricks's mercenary army, and the best place to find it was in the criminal underworld of Vrin Prime's lower districts. The lower city was a stark contrast to the gleaming towers above. Here buildings were old and crumbling. The streets were filled with aliens from dozens of conquered worlds, all struggling to survive under Vrin rule. Taemin saw other humans for the first time since leaving the mining colony. They looked tired and hopeless, moving through the crowds with heads down. Jiwoo led them to a bar that catered to mercenaries and information brokers. As they entered, Taemin could feel dozens of eyes turning toward them. Most saw only 2 travelers looking for work, but some recognized Jiwoo despite her disguise. They sat at a corner table and waited. Eventually, a broker approached. He was a small alien with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the dim light. "I hear you are looking for information about Kale Rix," the broker whispered. "That information is expensive and dangerous." Jiwoo placed a credit chip on the table. "Tell me about his mercenary army. How many? What species? What weapons?" The broker pocketed the chip quickly. 12 elite fighters, all Vrin, all former military. They use prohibited weapons despite the honor rules. Kale Rix does not care about tradition. He only cares about winning. "He plans to cheat," Taemin said. "Kale Rix does not consider it cheating. He considers it practical." The broker leaned closer. "But here is something interesting. He has been asking questions about humans, about their tactics, about you specifically, slave." Taemin exchanged a glance with Jiwoo. "He knows about me? Everyone knows about you. The human who saved the Crimson Reaper, the human who fights beside her. You are famous in the lower city. You are a symbol of hope to the conquered species." Before Taemin could respond, a group of Vrin mercenaries stood up from a nearby table. Their leader was a scarred warrior with a cruel smile. "Jiwoo the Crimson Reaper," he said loudly. "I thought I recognized you. And with a human pet. How far you have fallen." Jiwoo stood slowly, her hand moving toward the concealed blade under her coat. "Walk away. This does not concern you, but it does. Kale Rix is offering a large reward for information about you, even more if someone delivers your head." The mercenary drew his weapon. "I think I will collect." The bar erupted into chaos. Patrons scattered, seeking cover. The mercenary and his crew attacked. Jiwoo's blade flashed as she met the first attacker. Taemin grabbed a chair and swung it at another mercenary, the wood shattering against the warrior's armor. Taemin was not a trained fighter, but desperation made him creative. He threw bottles, flipped tables, and used every dirty trick he had learned in the mines. One mercenary cornered him, weapon raised. Taemin kicked sand from the floor into the alien's eyes, then struck with a broken table leg. Jiwoo fought with deadly precision, but there were too many attackers. She was injured, still healing from the earlier assassination attempt. Taemin saw her stumble as a blade caught her side. The mercenary leader moved in for the kill. Taemin did not think. He threw himself between them, taking the blow meant for Jiwoo. Pain exploded across his chest as the energy blade burned through his clothes and seared his skin. But the distraction was enough. Jiwoo recovered and her blade found the mercenary leader's heart. The remaining mercenaries fled. Bora's guards, who had been following at a distance, rushed in to secure the area. Taemin collapsed, the pain overwhelming him. Jiwoo caught him before he hit the ground. "You fool," she said, but her voice was gentle. "Why do you keep saving me?" "Because someone has to," Taemin managed through gritted teeth. They returned to the estate. Medics treated Taemin's wound. The blade had missed vital organs, but he would need days to recover. As he lay in bed, drifting in and out of consciousness, he heard Jiwoo speaking to someone. "Bring his sister here. Bring Hana from Arcturus 7. He has earned this much at least." 3 days later, Hana arrived. She was thin and scared, her eyes wide as she took in the luxury of the estate. When she saw Taemin, she rushed to his bedside and hugged him carefully, avoiding his injuries. "They told me you were hurt," she said, tears streaming down her face. "They told me you were with the Crimson Reaper." "It is a long story," Taemin said, squeezing her hand. "But we are together now. That is what matters." Jiwoo stood in the doorway watching the reunion. When Hana noticed her, she immediately bowed, fear in her eyes. Jiwoo raised a hand. "Do not bow to me," Jiwoo said. "Your brother has shown me that respect must be earned, not demanded. You are safe here." That evening, news arrived that changed everything. Kale Rix's fleet had reached Vrin Prime. He sent a message broadcast across the entire planet. His face appeared on every screen. His scarred features twisted with cruel anticipation. "Jiwoo, Crimson Reaper. In 3 days I will hunt you in the honor grounds. Tradition demands you face me alone with primitive weapons only. But I care nothing for tradition. I will bring my best warriors. I will use every weapon at my disposal. And I will prove that I am the greatest hunter in the galaxy by mounting your head on my wall." The challenge was clear. Kale Rix would break every rule to ensure his victory. Jiwoo would have to enter the honor grounds knowing she faced impossible odds. Taemin climbed out of bed despite the pain from his wounds. He found Jiwoo standing on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "You heard the message," she said without turning around. "I did. According to tradition, I must go alone." "Then tradition is foolish," Taemin said. He stood beside her. "You freed me. You brought my sister to safety. You are trying to change your empire's cruel ways. I will not let you face Kale Rix alone. If you follow me into the honor grounds, you will be breaking Vryn law. They will execute you. Then they will have to catch me first." Taemin smiled despite the pain. "You made me your attendant, not your slave. I choose to follow you." Jiwoo looked at him, and for a moment her stern warrior mask cracked. "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" "Because you are trying to be better than what you were raised to be. Because you gave me hope when I thought I had none left. Because fighting beside you is the first time I have felt truly free since the Vryn invaded Earth." Taemin met her ember eyes. "And because I believe we can win." Jiwoo was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well. We will face Kale Rix together, and we will show the galaxy that The honor grounds stretched for thousands of kilometers across Vryn Prime's northern continent. Ancient forests filled with deadly predators, jagged mountains that reached into the clouds, and vast plains where alien grass grew taller than a man. This was where Vryn warriors had tested themselves for centuries, where tradition demanded that hunters prove their worth with only their skill and primitive weapons. Cameras surrounded the entire region, broadcasting the hunt to every world in the Vryn Empire. Billions would watch as Jiwoo faced Kale Rix. The Vryn people loved their hunts, their spectacles of strength and honor. But this hunt was different. This hunt would determine the future of the Empire itself. Jiwoo stood at the entrance to the honor grounds, dressed in simple leather armor and carrying only a spear and knife, the traditional weapons of a Vryn hunter. Taemin stood beside her, wearing similar armor that Bora had provided. He carried a bow and arrows along with a short sword, human weapons for a human warrior. "You should not be here," Bora said quietly. She had come to see them off. "The council will call for your execution when this is over." "Let them try," Taemin said. Bora smiled slightly. "You have changed her, human." The old Jiwoo would never have allowed a slave to stand beside her, would never have questioned the Empire's ways. "I hope you both survive to see what comes next." The gates opened. Jiwoo and Taemin entered the honor grounds together. Behind them, the gates sealed shut. They would not open again until the hunt was finished, one way or another. The first day passed quietly as they moved deeper into the forest. They said little, saving their energy and staying alert for any signs of danger. The honor grounds were beautiful but deadly. Plants with poisonous thorns grew among the trees. Predators prowled in the shadows. Even the insects could be lethal if you were not careful. As night fell, they made camp in a cave. Taemin built a small fire while Jiwoo kept watch. The flames cast dancing shadows on the cave walls. "Tell me about Earth," Jiwoo said suddenly. "Tell me what it was like before the war." Taemin was surprised by the question. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I have spent my life hunting and killing, but I have never truly understood what I was taking from others." "Tell me about your home." Taemin stared into the fire, memories flooding back. "Earth was beautiful. I grew up in a city near the ocean. Every morning I would watch the sunrise over the water. My parents ran a small engineering shop. They taught me everything they knew about machines and systems. Hana and I would play in the park after school, watching birds and climbing trees. It sounds peaceful. It was. Not perfect, but it was ours. We had problems, conflicts between nations, struggles with resources, but we were working to solve them. We had hope." Taemin's voice grew quieter. "Then the Vryn came. Your ships filled the sky. Your weapons destroyed our cities in hours. My parents died in the first attacks. Hana and I survived only because we were at school that day. We were captured and sent to the mines." Jiwoo was silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with something that might have been regret. "I am sorry. I know those words are inadequate, but I mean them. I was taught that conquered species were lesser, that taking what we wanted was our right as the stronger race. But you have shown me that strength is not just physical power. Your people have something the Vryn lack. You have the strength to hope even in darkness. And you have the strength to change," Taemin said. "That is why we can win tomorrow. Kale Rix is strong, but he is trapped by his own nature. He cannot adapt, but we can. On the second day, they found signs of Kale Rix's presence. Broken branches disturbed Earth. The remains of a local predator that had been killed with advanced weapons. Bora's spies had been right. Kale Rix was not following the honor rules. He had brought his mercenaries and their prohibited technology into the sacred grounds. He wants to make sure of his victory, Jiwoo said, studying the evidence. He cannot risk losing to me fairly. Then we use that against him, Taemin suggested. He expects you to follow tradition. He expects a straightforward hunt. We give him something else entirely. They spent the day setting traps, simple but effective devices using materials from the environment. Pit traps covered with branches and leaves, tripwires that would trigger falling rocks, snares hidden along obvious paths. Human ingenuity combined with Vrin's strength. The attack came at dusk on the second day. Kale Rix's mercenaries moved through the forest like shadows. 12 elite warriors armed with energy weapons and wearing advanced armor. They should have been easy to spot. But they used stealth technology that made them nearly invisible. Nearly, but not completely. Taemin had taught Jiwoo to watch for the small signs. The slight shimmer in the air. The way grass moved without wind. The sound of breathing hidden by ambient noise. Northeast, Taemin whispered. 3 of them. Jiwoo nodded. They had discussed this possibility and planned accordingly. They moved in opposite directions using the thick forest to their advantage. Taemin climbed a tree, positioning himself with a clear view of the approaching mercenaries. His hands were steady as he nocked an arrow. The mercenaries advanced confidently, believing themselves hidden. They did not expect prey that could see through their stealth. Taemin waited until they passed under his tree, then fired. The arrow struck the first mercenary in the neck, where his armor offered less protection. The warrior fell without a sound. The other 2 mercenaries spun around, searching for the threat. Jiwoo burst from the underbrush, her spear driving through the second mercenary's chest before he could raise his weapon. The third fired at her, but she rolled aside with inhuman speed. Taemin fired again, his arrow finding the mercenary's eye. 3 down, 9 to go. They moved quickly, knowing the sounds of combat would draw the others. Their traps began to work. A mercenary stepped on a covered pit and fell onto sharpened stakes. Another triggered a deadfall crushed under tons of rock. They were not just fighting. They were hunting the hunters. But Kale Rix was no fool. He adapted to their tactics, sending his remaining warriors in coordinated groups. The forest became a deadly game of cat and mouse, both sides hunting each other through the darkening trees. Night fell completely. Taemin and Jiwoo found themselves surrounded. 6 mercenaries had them pinned in a rocky clearing. Energy weapons hummed with deadly promise. There was no escape. Is this your honor, Kale Rix? Jiwoo shouted into the darkness. Hiding behind your warriors? Using prohibited weapons? Where is the great hunter now? A figure emerged from the shadows. Kale Rix was massive even for a Vrin, his body covered in scars from countless battles. His ember eyes glowed with cruel amusement. Honor is for the weak, Kale Rix said. His voice was like grinding stone. I am the future of the Vrin. Power is all that matters, and I have the power to destroy you. He gestured, and his mercenaries opened fire. Jiwoo pushed Taemin behind a boulder as energy blasts tore through the air. They were trapped, outnumbered, and outgunned. This was not how it was supposed to end. Then Taemin remembered something. A tactic from human history. A desperate move that had turned the tide of battles against impossible odds. Can you create light? Taemin asked urgently. Something bright enough to blind them? Jiwoo understood immediately. She had a flare in her pack, part of the emergency supplies all hunters carried. She activated it and threw it high into the air. The flare exploded like a small sun, turning night into day. The mercenaries, adapted for low-light vision, were temporarily blinded by the sudden brilliance. Taemin and Jiwoo did not hesitate. They charged forward through the disoriented warriors. Jiwoo's spear found 2 targets before they could recover. Taemin used his sword, fighting with desperate skill against trained killers. A mercenary recovered faster than the others and aimed his weapon at Taemin's back. Jiwoo saw the danger but was too far away. She threw her knife with all her strength. The blade buried itself in the mercenary's throat. But the distraction cost her. Another mercenary struck her from behind, his weapon burning across her back. Jiwoo fell, badly wounded. The mercenary raised his weapon for the killing shot. Taemin tackled him before he could fire. They struggled on the ground, Taemin using every ounce of strength he had. He was weaker, smaller, but he was fighting for more than himself. He was fighting for Jiwoo, for Hana, for every human who had suffered under Vryn rule. He was fighting to prove that humans were not just slaves, but equals. His hands found a rock. He brought it down again and again until the mercenary stopped moving. Taemin crawled to Jiwoo. She was barely conscious, silver blood pooling beneath her. Only 2 mercenaries remained besides Kale Rix, and they were wounded and exhausted. But Kale Rix himself was fresh and deadly. "Impressive," Kale Rix said, walking slowly toward them. "The slave has spirit. But this ends now." Kale Rix drew his blade, a massive sword that hummed with energy. He was going to kill them both, rules and honor forgotten. This was murder, pure and simple. Taemin stood between Jiwoo and Kale Rix. His body screamed with pain. He had no weapons left except a broken sword. He could not win this fight, but he would not run. He had promised to protect her. "Move aside, human," Kale Rix said. "You are brave but foolish. I will make your death quick." "No," Taemin said simply. "If you want her, you go through me." Kale Rix laughed, and the medical ship arrived at the honor grounds within hours. Taemin woke in a clean bed, his wounds treated with advanced Vryn medical technology. Every part of his body ached, but he was alive. More importantly, Jiwoo was alive too. She lay in the bed next to his, unconscious but stable. Bora stood between their beds, her expression grim. "The entire galaxy watched your fight. Every species in the Empire, every Vryn citizen. They saw a human slave defeat Kale Rix. They saw you fight as equals. Is that bad?" Taemin asked weakly. "It depends on your perspective. To the conquered species, you are a hero, a symbol of hope. To the Vryn High Council, you are a threat that must be eliminated." Bora leaned closer. "They are already plotting. When Jiwoo recovers enough to appear before them, they will demand answers. And they will want you dead." "Let them try," Jiwoo said, her eyes opening. Her voice was weak but determined. "I will not let them harm him. You may not have a choice. The council has the power to override any noble's decisions, especially now. You broke tradition by allowing Taemin to fight beside you. You broke sacred honor rules. They will use this against you." Jiwoo tried to sit up, wincing with pain. "Then we will face them together. Just as we faced Kale Rix." 3 days later, Jiwoo and Taemin stood before the Vryn High Council. The chamber was massive, with 12 council members sitting on elevated thrones. Their ember eyes burned with anger and suspicion. Below the council seats, hundreds of nobles and military leaders watched the proceedings. Cameras broadcast everything to every world in the Empire. The High Chancellor, an ancient Vryn with scars covering his silver skin, spoke first. "Jiwoo of House Reaper, you have returned victorious from your challenge, yet you have violated our most sacred traditions. You allowed a slave to fight beside you in the honor grounds. Worse, you have advocated for changes to our empire's fundamental structure. Explain yourself." Jiwoo stood straight despite her injuries. Taemin stood beside her, refusing to bow or show fear. "I allowed my ally to fight beside me because Kale Rix brought 12 warriors armed with prohibited weapons. He violated every rule of honorable combat. I adapted to survive, using the resources available to me. That is what hunters do. The human is not a resource. He is property. A slave. He is neither," Jiwoo said firmly. "I freed him. He is my equal and my friend. He has saved my life 3 times. He fought with courage and intelligence that surpasses many Vryn warriors. To call him property is to blind ourselves to truth." The council chamber erupted in angry shouts. Half the assembled nobles yelled in agreement. The other half demanded Jiwoo's punishment. The High Chancellor raised his hand for silence. "You speak of truth? Here is truth. The Vryn Empire was built on strength. We conquered weaker species because that is the way of nature. To suggest that slaves should be equals is to threaten the foundation of our civilization." "Then perhaps that foundation is flawed," Jiwoo said. The chamber went silent at her words. "I have spent my life hunting, conquering, taking what I wanted through strength. But Taemin has shown me a different kind of strength. The strength to endure suffering without breaking. The strength to show mercy when revenge would be easier. The strength to hope when hope seems impossible. These are not weaknesses. These are powers we Vryn have forgotten." The High Chancellor's expression darkened. "You are a traitor to your own kind." "I am trying to save my kind," Jiwoo countered. "Empires built on oppression always fall eventually. The conquered will rise. The slaves will rebel. If we continue treating humans and other species as property, we create the seeds of our own destruction. But if we offer partnership instead of chains, we could build something greater than any empire. Taimin knew this was his moment. He had not asked for this role, had not wanted to become a symbol. But sometimes history chooses you. He stepped forward and addressed the council directly. I am Taimin, once a slave of the mining colony Arcturus 7. I was born free on Earth. I watched the Vryn destroy my world and kill my parents. I spent 7 years in darkness, breaking rocks while my spirit slowly died. I had every reason to hate all of you. He paused, making eye contact with the council members. But then Jiwoo showed me that Vryn are not all the same. She questioned her own beliefs. She saw me as a person rather than property. She gave me back my humanity. And in return, I protected her. Not because she commanded it, but because it was right. Taimin's voice grew stronger. You have enslaved billions across dozens of worlds. You have crushed hopes and destroyed cultures. But you cannot crush the human spirit. You cannot destroy our will to be free. Every slave in this empire watched our fight against Kale Rix. They saw that humans can stand as equals with Vryn. They saw that we can win. The chamber was absolutely silent. Taimin continued. You can kill me today. You can kill Jiwoo and everyone who supports her. But you cannot kill what we represent. The galaxy has changed. The question is whether you will change with it or be destroyed by your own rigidity. The High Chancellor stood, fury in his ember eyes. Arrest them both. The human will be executed immediately. Jiwoo will be stripped of her title and imprisoned pending trial. Guards moved forward with weapons drawn. Jiwoo reached for a weapon she no longer carried. Taimin prepared to fight with his bare hands. This was how it ended then. They had defied the galaxy's most powerful empire, and now they would pay the price. Then Bora stepped forward from the crowd of military leaders. No. The High Chancellor turned to her in shock. What did you say? I said no. I will not allow you to harm them. Bora's hand moved to her weapon. Behind her, a dozen other military commanders did the same. Jiwoo is right. This empire is built on a foundation of cruelty and oppression. It cannot stand forever. I choose to stand with her. I choose to fight for a better future. Other Vryn began standing. First a few nobles who had progressive views. Then more, then dozens. Some were young warriors inspired by Jiwoo's courage. Others were old veterans tired of endless conquest. All of them ready to defy the High Council. This is treason, the High Chancellor shouted. This is evolution, Bora replied calmly. The galaxy is watching. Every human, every conquered species, every Vryn citizen. They just watched a human fight alongside a Vryn noble as equals. They watched a human help defeat the galaxy's most feared warrior. You can execute Taimin and Jiwoo, but you cannot erase what people have seen. You cannot force the galaxy to forget that change is possible. The High Chancellor looked around the chamber, seeing the rebellion growing before his eyes. He had expected easy control, but the fight in the honor grounds had changed everything. Half the empire was ready to revolt. What do you propose? He asked finally, his voice cold. Free the humans, Jiwoo said. All of them. Across every world. Give them citizenship and rights. Let them choose whether to stay or return to Earth. Show the galaxy that the Vryn Empire can adapt, can grow beyond mere conquest. And if we refuse? Then civil war, Bora said simply. Half the military will follow me. Millions of Vryn citizens who watched the hunt support reform. Every enslaved species will rise up when they see the humans freed. You can try to maintain control through force, but you will tear the empire apart. The council members whispered among themselves. Taimin could see the calculation in their eyes. They were not suddenly enlightened or compassionate. They were pragmatic. And right now, reform seemed less dangerous than civil war. The High Chancellor spoke after a long silence. Very well. We will begin a gradual process of reform. The humans will be given provisional citizenship. They may choose to stay or leave. Other species will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Not gradual, Jiwoo interrupted. Immediate. Today. Now. That is not possible. Then war it is. Jiwoo's hand moved to Bora's weapon. Around the chamber, her supporters readied themselves. The tension was unbearable. One wrong word would ignite a conflict that would consume the empire. Taimin found himself at the center of galactic history, a former slave whose actions were reshaping civilization. Finally, the High Chancellor yielded. Immediate freedom for the humans. But Jiwoo, you will oversee the transition personally. Any chaos or rebellion that results will be your responsibility. I accept, Jiwoo said. The council session ended in chaos. News spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Humans were free. The Vryn Empire had bent rather than break. It was not complete victory, but it was a beginning. Jiwoo and Taimin returned to her estate, exhausted but triumphant. Hana was waiting there, tears of joy streaming down her face when she heard the news. Around them, Vryn servants who had helped them and human slaves who had been freed celebrated together. "What happens now?" Taimin asked as he and Jiwoo stood on the balcony, watching the celebration below. "Now we do the hard work," Jiwoo said. "Freeing the slaves is just the beginning. We have to help them rebuild their lives, find them homes and work, teach them to live as citizens rather than property. It will take years, maybe decades, but it is possible. Yes, because of you. Because you showed me that humans are not weak or lesser. You showed the entire galaxy that partnership is stronger than domination." Taimin looked out at